Friends, let me share a story that might sound simple at first, but carries immense weight once we internalize its meaning. Imagine you receive your paycheck, and with great anticipation, you begin to allocate it. In the blink of an eye, however, the funds seem to vanish. Bills pile up, groceries add up, unexpected costs appear, and when the dust settles, you find yourself wondering where all that money went. This cycle, repeated month after month, can feel like a treadmill that never stops. But there is a clear pathway off this loop, one that rests on the principle of dividing your financial world into proper proportions. The idea is straightforward. Of every dollar that comes your way, you keep 70 cents in one pot for your usual expenses, while the remaining 30 cents get directed toward your brighter future. It may sound deceptively simple, but the impact of implementing this system over the course of your lifetime can become the dividing line between a life forever bound by stress and one enriched by financial peace. We often assume a bigger income will automatically fix our challenges, and so we chase higher salaries or better positions. Yet those who truly prosper over the long haul know that discipline is the secret ingredient. Without discipline, no amount of money is ever enough. And with discipline, even modest means can multiply. Many people want an overnight change, but real transformations take patience, consistency, and a sense of steady commitment. Once you begin to work with the 70-30 approach, it becomes clear that we're doing more than just counting pennies. We're practicing the art of deliberately guiding every dollar to fulfill its highest purpose, all while ensuring that your life remains balanced. Make no mistake, there's no magical formula that does all the heavy lifting for you. The 70-30 principle is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a mindset shift that comes from recognizing that money, when correctly managed, can be an incredible tool rather than a stressor. When we assign 70% of our income to daily living costs, we give ourselves a clear boundary for how we run our household. We start asking questions about what expenses are truly necessary and which can be trimmed. This invites creativity. Instead of always seeking more funds to pay for expanding demands, we search for ways to bring our demands in line with our chosen limit. We might find that cooking at home more often is not just healthier, but also a brilliant way to keep more money in our pockets. We might start planning errands to avoid unnecessary mileage and cut down on fuel costs. Or we might compare prices more diligently before we make impulse buys. Little by little, the mindset of efficiency seeps into our daily lives. Even small changes can add up in ways that are surprisingly powerful, giving us an immediate benefit in the form of extra cash flow that doesn't violate the 70% ceiling. But more importantly, this system fosters a sense of personal control, which can be the very thing that helps you sleep better at night. After all, it's not about sacrificing joy, but rather discovering a disciplined approach that lets you lay down a strong foundation for life's many obligations while maintaining a sense of future security. By consciously allocating just 70% of your resources to the everyday, you carve out space for the next crucial steps that direct your financial destiny. Now, let's address the equally vital 30%. Break it down in a way that encourages growth and contributes to your long-term well-being. This portion can be viewed as an investment in your future. But we're not merely talking about tossing it haphazardly into the stock market or banking it in a savings account without strategy. We're talking about truly understanding what drives wealth accumulation and prosperity. Perhaps 10% goes toward expanding your mind and your skill sets. That might mean buying books, taking online courses, attending seminars, or finding mentors who challenge your perspective and push you to excel. Another 10% could be earmarked for formal investment stocks, bonds, real estate, or other vehicles that, over time, can build a nest egg within your financial independence. The remaining 10% might be set aside for acts of generosity, supporting causes you believe in, giving to those in need, or simply providing a cushion for unexpected crises. This last allocation is often the part that transforms your perspective on wealth most profoundly. Because when you learn to part with a portion of your income graciously and consistently, you reinforce to yourself the principle that your resources can reach beyond your personal sphere. By sharing, you solidify your belief in abundance and open the door to the notion that true wealth is a cycle of giving and receiving, not merely a matter of clinging tightly to every cent you earn. The 70-30 philosophy thus goes beyond dollars and cents. It taps into how we view our role in the world. Of course, learning to channel 70% toward living and 30% toward the future can be easier said than done if you've spent years ignoring these categories. Habits are powerful forces that steer much of our day-to-day behavior, often without us even realizing it. When you first try to adopt this rule, you may feel a bit unsettled, even anxious about seemingly restricting your spending. If you've grown accustomed to using your entire paycheck or even more than that, through credit cards, adjusting down to 70% might feel like a genuine challenge. You might worry that you won't be able to keep up with your existing obligations or maintain your preferred lifestyle. This is where the magic of consistent, incremental change comes into play. You start by calmly examining every expense. Don't just consider where your money goes, consider why it goes there. You may realize that some of your recurrent costs are rooted in convenience rather than necessity. Maybe there's a better, cheaper alternative that still meets your needs. Or perhaps some luxuries you thought you needed are not essential at all. By observing your patterns and prioritizing what genuinely adds value to your life, you might discover that this new structure is less about deprivation and more about conscious choice. As you eliminate wasteful expenditures, you free up more resources to be intentionally directed to the areas that matter. You become the chief architect of your finances, rather than just a bystander watching bills and paychecks collide. I want to emphasize that the 70-30th principle is as much about personal growth as it is about financial stability. By committing to any form of disciplined financial system, we begin to develop stronger willpower in other areas of life. We learn to say no to fleeting impulses and yes to well-considered decisions. We come to see that small efforts produce meaningful outcomes when applied consistently. This new discipline can also bridge into healthier habits regarding time management, relationships, and personal development. For instance, when you realize the power of setting boundaries on spending, you become more adept at setting boundaries on time commitments or energy-draining engagements. You start to notice that life's precious resource, time, energy, financier, all connected by the same principle. Distribution matters. If we spend every moment or every bit of energy as soon as we get it, we have nothing left to cultivate a brighter future. And if we never invest in self-improvement, our present remains a constant struggle to keep up with demands rather than shaping a better tomorrow. Thus, adopting the 70-30th mindset can be a profound turning point in your overall philosophy of living, not just a narrow fix to your bank statements. Another aspect to consider is flexibility. There will be periods in your life when the exact percentage might shift slightly due to extraordinary circumstances, a medical emergency, the birth of a child, a sudden loss of income. In these times, the discipline you've practiced will help you weather the storm. Even if you have to adjust for a season, the principle remains the same. Minimize your daily living costs as best you can, and aim to preserve as much of that future-focused share as possible. And when better days return, you get back to full implementation of the 70-30th split without having totally derailed your progress. Life rarely follows a perfect trajectory, and the mark of real wisdom is adaptability. Those who fail to plan for the unplanned often find themselves plunging into debt, panic, or a desperate scramble for survival. But those who have carefully set aside reserves through a disciplined approach experience a sense of security that is not just financial, but emotional and psychological. It's a comfort to know that you've put in the work ahead of time so that when storms arise, you're able to stand firm. Some people ask, what if my income is so low that I can't imagine living on 70%? There may indeed be circumstances where incomes are stretched incredibly thin. In such cases, the principle becomes an aspirational aim. Perhaps you start at 95/5ths, then move to 90/10ths, and so on, making gradual adjustments as your situation improves. If you're earnest about your personal development, you'll seek ways to grow your earnings through learning new skills, engaging in part-time ventures, or refining your talents to increase your value in the marketplace. The fundamental lesson remains: aim to spend less than you earn and allocate the difference toward building a better future. Even a small difference, consistently applied, can lead to major long-term changes. The momentum you build by saving or investing a mere fraction of your income can have a compounding effect that surprises you down the line. You may not be able to adopt the classic 70-30ths overnight, but setting an intention to move in that direction ensures that you are on the right track. Let's also talk about the psychology of money. Many of us have grown up with a scarcity mindset, always worrying that there isn't enough to go around. This perspective can trap us in a cycle of fear, where our financial decisions are driven by anxiety rather than confidence. By deliberately setting aside 30% for the future, we are telling ourselves that the future matters, that we believe in its possibilities, and that we are capable of shaping it. We remove that lingering doubt that says, "I'll never have enough." Instead, we replace it with a quiet assurance. I'm building a reserve. I'm preparing to seize opportunities as they arise. This is not mere wishful thinking. It's a pragmatic move that trains your mind to approach money with optimism and purpose. The mental shift alone can open new doors. When you stop seeing yourself as perpetually on the edge of financial ruin, you begin to explore ways to elevate your income, better manage your resources, and collaborate with people who share your vision. This mindset sets the stage for creative problem solving, because instead of feeling cornered, you start to sense that you have choices. As you move further along this path, you might discover that 70% is more than enough. Perhaps you discover minimalism or a newfound appreciation for simplicity, leading you to realize that many of the things you used to buy didn't add genuine happiness to your life. You might begin donating more than 10%, or investing 15% instead of 10%, or diversifying your investments in ways that reflect your deeper values and interests. The beauty of this principle is that it's infinitely adaptable once the core habit is ingrained. At some point, you might even reverse the ratio, living on 30% and saving or investing 70%, because you've reached a level of abundance you never imagined before. That may sound like a far-fetched dream, but it's entirely possible for those who commit to disciplined strategies and allow compounding, both financial and personal, to work in their favor. What was once a humble practice of dividing up a modest paycheck can evolve into a powerful framework for managing considerable wealth, all while maintaining the same habits you started with when you had much less. By then, your confidence and clarity will be so deeply rooted that the external circumstances of your income level are just details. The heart of it remains a consistent approach to distribution. Now, I know some people might worry they're missing out on life by keeping a strict allocation. After all, what's the point of money if not to enjoy it? Indeed, there should be room for enjoyment, for celebration, and for spontaneous pleasures. The discipline doesn't exist to make us into robots who never indulge. Rather, it's there to preserve our long-term well-being while still allowing for fun. When you're consistent about the 70-30 split, you'll notice that the 70% portion can still permit you the occasional treat. The difference is that you plan for it, ensuring that short-term delights don't sabotage long-term security. This kind of mindful spending enhances your appreciation for what you do, decide to purchase or experience. You learn to savor the coffee outing, the dinner with friends, or the new gadget, because you know it fits neatly within your plan and does not erode your sense of financial stability. There's a peace in that knowledge that makes each moment of enjoyment richer. You avoid the stress of buyer's remorse or the dread of next month's statement because you already arranged your resources responsibly. Keep in mind that discipline doesn't equate to perfection. You might have months where unexpected events pop up, or your best intentions fall short, and you dip into the portion meant for the future. The key is to avoid making this a habit. Recognize the lapse, readjust, and move forward. It's similar to a healthy eating plan. One day of overindulgence doesn't negate months of careful nutrition, as long as you learn from the slip and recommit to better choices. Rather than punishing yourself, keep your focus on the progress you've made. Each time you return to discipline, you reinforce that identity of someone who is in command of their finances. Over time, these small redirections build a formidable sense of self-trust. You'll know, deep down, that you are capable of confronting financial temptations without letting them take over your life. And that self-trust is priceless. It translates into more than just success. With money, it shows up as confidence in other areas, like your health routines, professional aspirations, and personal relationships. In many respects, the 70-30th concept is an invitation to mastery. The external act of splitting your income sets a stage for you to cultivate patience, introspection, consistency, and generosity. These qualities, once developed, ripple out and improve your life in ways you may never have predicted. People sometimes believe that if they could just find the perfect budgeting app or the perfect stock, everything would be solved. But true mastery goes beyond any single tool or investment. It rests on the discipline that shapes your behavior day after day. Even if technology fails or your chosen stocks fluctuate, your disciplined habits remain yours forever. That foundation is what allows you to handle life's uncertainties with poise. You won't be at the mercy of the markets or reliant on random strokes of good luck, because you'll have a system that works in both good times and bad. When you recognize this, you start to value discipline for its own sake, realizing it's a skill that sustains, not just a technique to hit a short-term target. Another overlooked benefit is the sense of structure that this rule brings to couples or families. Often, disagreements about money can be a major source of tension in relationships. By mutually agreeing to abide by the 70-30th principle, Families can align their goals and expectations. Conversations about spending and saving become more transparent as everyone understands the guiding ratio that influences decisions. Rather than fighting about individual transactions, partners and family members can focus on adjusting within that established framework. This approach reduces emotional friction and helps everyone see the bigger picture. We have a shared goal of living responsibly and securing the future. We treat our money as a team effort, which naturally fosters cooperation and mutual respect. Children who grow up observing this system learn from a young age that money is not just for immediate gratification, but also for building something meaningful in the future and giving back to the community. They develop a balanced perspective on wealth, seeing it as a resource to be harnessed thoughtfully rather than a chaotic pool of funds that disappears as soon as it arrives. Over time, this can create generational shifts in how entire families view financial responsibility. Let me encourage you to take a gentle yet firm first step. If you're new to this way of thinking, don't feel pressured to master it in a week. Start by jotting down your current expenses for a month or two. Really see where your money flows. Then begin trimming where you can, gradually aiming to settle on that 70% figure. From there, distribute the remaining 30% in a manner that fosters growth. Education, investments, and contributions. You don't need to be an expert investor right away. You can start small, placing your funds in simple, reliable assets or saving accounts while you learn and gather more information. Over time, you'll refine your strategy, perhaps opting for diversified portfolios or stepping into real estate or entrepreneurial ventures. The most critical element is that you're committed to setting that money aside for the future, unshakable in your resolve to protect it from needless spending. Each payday becomes an exercise in self-respect. You respect your potential enough to reserve a portion of your earnings for tomorrow's opportunities. As the months and years go by, you'll see the benefits stacking up. You'll have resources available if a sudden chance to invest in something promising comes along. You'll be able to support a friend in need or a cause that resonates with your heart without feeling guilty or anxious. You'll greet financial downturns with far less panic than those who live paycheck to paycheck. All this stems from that simple act, dividing your money into categories and holding to them with disciplined resolve. And as you grow more adept, you might refine your categories further, taking into account new goals or changing life circumstances. Maybe you'll add a separate portion for travel or for starting your own business. The beauty of it is that once the habit is in place, you can adapt it as life evolves. You're not locked into a rigid structure. Rather, you have a reliable guide that keeps you on track while still allowing personal creativity and growth. You might wonder, is it really that straightforward? In principle, yes, though the emotional work required can be formidable. We live in a world constantly pushing us to spend more, to flaunt status, to chase every new trend. Marketers vie for our attention, promising that the next purchase will bring instant happiness. In the face of that pressure, the discipline to adhere to the 70/30th rule is like a fortress. It protects you from the whim of consumer culture and grounds you in a more measured approach. It reminds you that real happiness isn't bought. It's cultivated through meaningful relationships, personal growth, experiences, and contributions. And it assures you that you don't have to give up all comforts to build security. You just have to plan. Remember, anything worth having in life, including financial freedom, requires some form of planning and commitment. There are no shortcuts that compare to the lasting effects of consistent action. Once you taste the peace of mind that comes from having a well-organized financial life, you'll see why this is not just a rule about money. It's a rule about living. It teaches that we can be both responsible stewards of our present and visionary architects of our future. It reminds us that every dollar we handle has the potential to serve us far beyond the fleeting moment. By choosing the 70/30th path, you declare that you are no longer a passive consumer buffeted by circumstances, but an active creator of your own destiny. You begin to realize that each paycheck is not merely a reflection of your labor, but a tool for designing your life. Instead of just fulfilling your needs today, you're actively planting seeds for tomorrow. As you watch those seeds grow into real assets, opportunities, or savings, in a sense of momentum that transcends the purely financial. Because once you're free from the bondage of living paycheck to paycheck, you gain the mental bandwidth to pursue bigger dreams and greater contributions. You can take on challenges and projects that once felt out of reach because your finances are no longer a continuous source of stress. Finally, there is a spiritual element to this practice. When we consistently put aside resources for education, investment, and especially for giving, We align ourselves with principles of growth and generosity that resonate deeply with how we connect to others. By reserving a portion of your earnings to help those in need, you affirm a belief world that supports shared well-being. You show gratitude for what you have by making sure some of it flows back into the lives of others. That sense of gratitude and generosity can be transformative. It inspires humility and fosters empathy. You start to see your own abundance, not just as something you've earned through diligence, but as a gift you can magnify by sharing. This, in turn, encourages more blessings, both tangible and intangible, to find their way into your life. Wealth in that sense becomes more than just a bank balance. It becomes a reflection of your growth as a person who knows how to create, nurture, sustain, and share. And that is truly powerful. Instead of a static pile of resources, your wealth becomes a living force of good, both for you and those around you. So, as you consider this message, I invite you to look at your life and your finances with fresh eyes. Think about where you are now and where you'd like to be in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. Then ask yourself, is your current approach giving you the best chance to get there? If you sense that it might not, this is your opportunity to change. The 70-30th rule is simple, but simplicity is often the hallmark of great truths. By living on 70% of your income, you learn discipline. By investing and educating yourself with 20% of the remainder, you learn growth. By dedicating the final 10% to giving, you learn generosity. These three pillars, discipline, growth, and generosity, form a robust foundation for a life well lived. One where finances support your deepest values and aspirations. No matter where you stand on the income ladder, the principle stands ready to serve you if you are willing to adopt it wholeheartedly. Embrace it, adapt it, refine it, but above all, stay faithful to its spirit. Over time, you may well look back in gratitude that you took this step. You'll see not just a healthier bank account, but a wiser, stronger, and more compassionate version of yourself guiding your journey forward. And that, my friends, is a reward beyond measure.